can just call our office if you have a question. If you have a question about a particular issue and you think it's something that we look at, you can just call our office. If you call our office, write a letter, anything, and generally it takes about, at the most, 48 hours for somebody to get back to you. But if you call the front desk, you tell them, I have this question about X, Y, Z, they'll refer you to someone in the office, and they'll return the call. Because a lot of times it doesn't take a whole presentation. It might be a little issue where I had a call last week, well, 2 weeks ago, where a student had diabetes, and the way his 504 plan was written, he always had to have a nurse present so that she could give him his injection. Now, the only bus that had nurse services was a short bus, and the kids in his neighborhood were making fun of him because he was riding a short bus. So that issue was, was funny because the school district was concerned with the 504 issues. Is the nurse present? But there's another issue. The students who go to school were making fun of him over a perceived disability, and now you've got a possible harassment issue. And so, the principal called me. I was able to talk to him about that, and he said, "Wow, that was really helpful." So a lot of times, just picking up the phone and calling us, we can be helpful if it's something that we can look at. And then this is our contact information. And the phone number is not on there, but I can give it to you guys now. Our phone number is area code 404-974-9406. 06. Yes, and that's our direct line. 404-974-9406. Okay. Okay. So that includes the OCR 101. Do we have any questions about that?
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
My first question is, can I as a parent put forth an open records request to find out exactly what you did during the investigation?
Okay. I can answer that. What we have in our office is called the Freedom of Information Act request. We'll use the acronym FOIA. You can file a FOIA request for our office, and what you can do is, you file that FOIA request, you can say, I want all the documents relating to case, let's say your case is 04-12-1000. And what happens then is, we will gather all the documents, so all the data that we get back from the school district, all our interview notes, anything that we put into that case file, and we'll send it to you. Now, before we send it to you, what we're going to have to do is, we're going to have to redact any personally identifiable information. So they'll tell you that over the phone when you make that request. They'll let you know. And a lot of times we'll get parents and they say, well, I can't tell what this person's name was. We can't give you that information. Because then we have a privacy issue. And that's the only thing in our particular position we can actually be sued for individually. So anybody who's doing that FOIA request doesn't want that to happen.
My next question.
Okay.
How many cases are filed and how many investigators are placed to handle these cases per year?
Well, it depends year to year. We last year had over 1,000 cases filed. On every case that's filed, there'll be one investigator, one attorney initially assigned to the case, depending on the complexity or the high profileness of the case. There might be more people assigned to it. So generally, if we get a case where a large nonprofit group is involved, SPLC files complaints, we'll probably put a team of individuals on it. Generally, over the course of a year, an investigator can probably handle about, I can say when I was an investigator, over the course of a year, I might handle 50 cases.
Okay, two questions, and I apologize for this. This is my last two questions, but you ran through that kind of quick for me. Students who are placed and separated based on track systems, such as the PRO program, I've noticed that there are a higher number of Caucasian students in the PRO programs and African American students that are not tracked for these same types of programs. Would that be considered a violation of African American children's rights?
Okay, again, as I stated earlier, it's always going to be a case-by-case analysis, so I can't sit up here in front of you and say that's definitely a violation.
Sure.
Now, what you said, definitely I think rises to the level of something that we can look at. So if you have any particular situation, I don't know about the PRO program, but if you have a particular situation where you feel like African American students are being tracked in one direction, Caucasian white students aren't being, that would be definitely something we could look at. So I can't tell you what the determination would be, but that's something definitely I would say file a complaint for.
And my last question, you mentioned, I'm sorry, you took that too fast for me. I'm sorry, I'm a slow learner.
No, go ahead.
And this is my last question, I apologize apologize to the group. Being regarded as a disability, how do you determine the type of discrimination? Being regarded as having a disability, how do you determine that type of discrimination?
Well, when we deal with the regarded as prong of disability discrimination, we're always going to be basically looking at harassment because, for instance, different treatment when you're regarded as usually doesn't happen because there's something that they're actually doing to you. So are they sending you here because of, but it's possible. So what I would say is, let me go back to that. You have a mental disability example. Let's say you have you're regarded as having a mental disability that you actually don't have. And the kids in the class are calling you a retard, which is a derogatory statement for people with mental disabilities. They keep saying, oh, you're retarded, you're a retard, you're retarded. That could rise to the level of harassment, even though you don't have that mental disability, but you're regarded by the group as having it and you're being harassed on that basis. So that's how we look at regarded as. You don't actually have it happening to you, but you're being you're being harassed as if you did.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Second part to that same statement, if it's a child that's not being necessarily targeted as a retard, but you have it's like if my student comes home and he says, oh, well, my teacher said I just have a learning disability in math. Okay, but it's consistently hammered into his mind process that he has this. At what point does it stop being an observation and starts becoming harassment for my student?
Well, here's the thing about it. That actually, when we talk about Title VI and I'll talk about harassment, a lot of times people think that it has to be that, extreme word. You call the student a retard for it to be harassment. Harassment, it depends on, we're going to look at the severity of the statements, we're also looking at the pervasiveness. Let's say if you say something that's not considered, a harsh word. You just have a learning disability. You just have a learning disability. But every single day you go to school and you try to do something, I say you have a learning disability. We would say that's pervasive enough. Well, and this is just me again, it's case by case, but it's possibly that could be pervasive enough where that be considered harassment. Even though the words using aren't those words that we see and say, oh my God, you're pervasive enough. It's happening all the time. And even if it's not the case, like you said, it's not the case, that can still be harassment.
Thank you.
Does that answer that?
Very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, in the beginning, you said that you had jurisdiction over any program that received financial assistance from the Department of Education.
Yeah, federal financial.
Does that nonprofit agencies fall into that as well?
Not necessarily. Nonprofit agencies don't usually get their money directly from us. Now, when you say like we get some sort of, those for-profit schools that get FFA, but FFA usually is only going to educational institutions. Like what agency would you be talking about?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that, but I'm just saying that might throw me in your privacy thing. But anyway,
okay.
I'm just saying because even though it might not be a school, but part of the work of the nonprofit agency could be getting funded from the Department
If
of
it comes from the
Education.
Department of Education, then we have jurisdiction over them. So if they are getting monies from the Department of Education, we do have jurisdiction over them. So I don't know, which one you're talking about. But if they get their money that comes from the Department of Ed, then yeah. They would
Well, some of a portion.
Yeah, if they get $1 from us, then we can.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I have a question. I filed a complaint with the OCR
Okay.
December 2nd,
So-
2012.
So like 2 weeks ago?
No, last
No,
year.
last
So it's 11? Okay, okay.
And it's still open. And
Did you receive anything?
I received, I'm on my third investigator. First 2 times I wasn't notified that the investigators had left the office. I called because I got my emails bounced back to me. So then the third person that I was assigned to, she asked me to stop calling up there. She said, apparently stop calling to see what the status of the case would be.
The investigator said this to you?
Yes.
Do you know your case number?
No.
Me and me at the break, and I'll find out.
I haven't gotten any information from them. They
When you file a complaint last year.
Ask what?
No one should have told you that you call them up here. That might actually, that's probably one of our retirees, so I don't know, I will definitely find out.
like see all work or whatever, first on my agenda priority, and then when I call, that's what you got.
Okay, I'll give Greg to me and I'll get a look, and I'll give you contact information, I can call you, and just let you know. Just give you a better, that doesn't make any sense. I don't know, so I don't want to make a statement.
No, go ahead, no, you first.
Say you have a child that, went through, they gave them, they settled out, something happened. A lot of times, the school will settle out for what they want, not what that child needs. And then the child go on, and they
Okay,
get to college.
all right, let me not cut you off. Are we saying this from a 504 standpoint? Like, if it's an issue where the school, is there a 504 issue where the students get some sort of accommodation?
It was, it wasn't a 504.
So it wasn't a disability issue?
It was a disability.
It wasn't just, okay,
It
so.
was a disability issue.
So a lot of times when we get complaints about disability issues, one thing complainants are often upset with is they might want something specific in, 504 plan, an IEP plan, or something to be done by the school district, and we don't force them to do it specifically. Now, one thing you'll hear from us as investigators, us as attorneys, anybody in our office, I actually taught for a year, but everybody in our office hasn't been in the field of education, and we're not educators. And so we can't make a determination of what's gonna go into it. What we look at is the process. That's what the lawyers do. We're looking at the process. Are you having a team meet that's knowledgeable about the student? And so that team meet is including, teachers, administrators, parents. The parent wants to bring somebody else, people in the community who are knowledgeable about the student. Is that group meeting to make a determination? If that group meets, they make a determination, and they determine that something goes into a particular plan, then that's fine with us because they went through the process. We have an issue if there was no process ever made. If, no one ever contacted the parent, and we said, we just had a determination, he needs this, but they never told the parent about it. Or,
What about when they set a plan and don't follow it?
well, that's
Or they set a plan, or they'll lose the case and then say, well, we're not guilty, but we're gonna give you this and go on.
well, they don't, if they set, like, so if a particular plan is set, like, course of action is set for a student, they fail to implement that plan, that's a violation of section 504, what I just mentioned. So whatever plan is set, they're supposed to follow the plan. That's something we actually look at a lot of times, study and implement. And that's saying, we got a 504 plan in place, it says Johnny should receive X, Y, Z, the school district's not giving Johnny X, Y, Z. So that's definitely a violation of the law and something that we can look at. Now, you said, now in case you say where the plan is actually set a plan, and after everything's settled, the school district decides not to do it anyway?
No, they did it, but they didn't do all what should have been done.
And when you say you didn't do all, was it, okay, let me say this. If it's, when you deal with things like 504 plans and IEP plans, what I always tell parents is, if you want it to be enforced, get it in that plan. If it's not in that plan, if it's not on the document, then really you don't have any protection to say he's supposed to be getting X, Y, Z. So anything you want in that particular plan, get it reduced to writing, where the plan is equally, where you can easily present the plan and say, hey, this is what's supposed to be in the plan, and this was not done. If there's anything else on the outside, well, they should have known to do this. Should have known school districts aren't gonna do. They're only gonna do what's in the plan. They're only gonna do what they're legally
If they don't
obligated to do.
follow what happened.
If they don't follow what's in the plan, that's the problem. But they're definitely not gonna do things that are not in the plan. You see what I'm saying?
So if it's unforeseen.
Yeah, and it's not in the plan, then they can't, then they're off the hook essentially for it. But if it's in the plan and it's something in the plan, then they have to do it. Now, if they don't do it, then you can file a complaint with us, because that would be a violation of section 504. But nothing, you don't ever get into, well, they should have known this should have been in the plan too, because that's not the
No,
case.
no.
Okay?
But putting it in the plan and then specifically following, specifically spelling out how you want them to accomplish
Well,
that.
that's another thing I say. You should, you want to go into as much detail as possible, like you said. You don't want to leave anything vague where it's, well, he's going to get 10 extra hours of language service, 10 extra hours a week, 10 extra hours a month, 10 extra hours a school year. Those type of things, if you don't get into specifics of it, then you have a serious problem. So you want to be as
Yeah,
specific as
because
possible.
people perceive things differently. You might say something in the plan and they might think it's, you want it this way and you want it another way, so you need
Oh, yeah,
to
I will.
spell it out.
That's where that big and shall should be implemented.
Yeah, so my question is kind of forward thinking.
Okay.
Are you all,
It's a short forward, thank you.
That's
So
fine.
you'll be in Atlanta next week. So the question is, with our state moving towards the career and college readiness indexes and things of that nature, we're concerned about our kids being tracked early on down certain career paths. So we could just imagine a rush of cases coming to you all, complaints. Are you all?
I can tell you that's something when we do our compliance reviews, we have to nominate them beforehand, but that's actually something that's currently on the table for a possible compliance review, because we are recognizing that it's a particular issue. It's actually been an issue a lot longer, but, right now it's getting a little bit more publicity. So that's something they're looking at on the table. Now, that doesn't mean it necessarily is gonna pass the compliance review, but it is being nominated. So I don't know what's gonna happen, but if that is the case, we would be able to, we would start looking at that in, I guess it would be fiscal year 2013, 2014.
I have one more question.
So this might be a good point.
I can take that
To
one.
have, if it's a short, a
Yes, it is short.
really short.
This is personal, where I was told before a child gets help, that they have to fail. This was said by administration in the elementary school, and things like this still go on. What can we do to stop that? No child should have to fail before they get this help to succeed.
What I'll do is, I'm gonna talk to you, I can talk to you right during the break. We're gonna take a break real quickly.
Yeah, we're gonna take a short
Okay,
break. Exercise. So like what, 5 minutes?
Yeah, 5 minutes.
You got like 39
Yeah, I got a couple more. So, yeah, 5 minutes.
5 minutes.